Namaskar. Welcome to this series on Bhagavad Geeta in daily life. Today we shall be looking at learning the goal setting from Bhagavad Geeta. Shreemad Bhagavad Geeta, as you know, is a divine song from Shri Krishna. Bhagavad means divinity. Geeta means something that can be sung. That's why it is a divine song. And it consists of 700 shlokas out of the 100,000 shlokas of the Mahabharata, because Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata, which has been compiled in 18 different chapters, also called Adhyayas, by Vedvyasa ji. And it is a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Mahabharata. And it is a metaphor of life, because life itself is a battlefield. A lot of battles we need to fight during our life, challenges, to overcome struggles. That's why Bhagavad Gita gives us the eternal message of life, how to live life. It is a guide to life for all the situations of life. And it helps us to overcome our attachments, our moha, our sorrows, pain, misery, our shoka. That is the main purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Our scriptures define the goal of human life. And our goals are generally, as we think about them commonly, we think about all the worldly goals, because we all want to be successful in life. And these worldly goals are nothing but material goals, attaining some kind of, name, fame, respect, position, power, wealth, money, assets, all the, investments, and all these are the material goals that we aspire in our life. But Gita ji or our scriptures tell us that the inner mind, the purity of our mind is the first station, or the first goal for most of us, how to purify our mind. And that is the first part of this journey for life. And finally, our scriptures show us that we can transcend this world. And that transcendental goal of eternal freedom is something that has been described in our scriptures. And Gita ji helps us to achieve both these goals, worldly goals as well as the transcendental goal. Setting the goal is very important in life, because it helps us to make something which was invisible or which was not clear. It gives us the clarity of the destination, of the path we want to take, how to reach that destination. That's why it helps us to turn the invisible into the visible. And our scriptures show us that this journey of attaining these goals, which generally we are all outwardly directed towards this world to attain the material success, whereas our scriptures show us that we have to take a U-turn in this direction and go within, go inwards, and touch the deepest cores of our inner self, our mind, because the outer world keeps changing, and the most of the situations that happen outside are not under my control. But my mind is something that I can control. It is within my control. And amongst all these chaotic situations in this world, whatever happens, day in and out, I can keep my mind calm in all these situations. And that's why whatever I need to do is within me. It's in my mind. Whatever I need to change is inside me. It's not something that outside I cannot, I should not, and I don't want to change situations outside. What I want to do is to have a change inside, and to attain the peace of mind, is something which is my responsibility. It is under my control. I'm independent to do this. And that is the biggest shift in thinking that happens when we dwell into the scriptures of our ancient wisdom. So to summarize Bhagavad Gita, the first Adhyaya talks about Arjuna's sorrow, how he sees the opponent army in the Kurukshetra battlefield. And then instead of seeing the warriors with whom he had come with so much of vengeance to fight, he sees all his relatives and gets attached. And then he becomes very upset. He describes his own condition, what happens to him, the stress response, and then he becomes very painful, miserable. He says, I don't want to fight this war with my cousins, with my guru, against my Bhishma Pitama, and all these cousins. I don't want to fight this battle. He goes and sits back in the backside of the chariot and says, Nayotsya, I don't want to fight this battle. So that is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And then in the second Adhyaya, which is considered to be the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagavan Shri Krishna gives the entire message how to live life and shows the path, also clearly defines the path. In the initial 10 shlokas, after the condition of Arjuna is described from the 11th shloka, Bhagavan starts describing the divine knowledge, the divinity of these existence, what is that ultimate Atma Jnana, the Jnana Updesha, and then describes the path of achieving this knowledge and says that we need to start from Karma Yoga. Karmanya Vadikaraste is also part of the second Adhyaya, 47th shloka, and then also talks about Bhakti Yoga. But Bhakti essentially is part of Karma Yoga, because action is not just by our physical action, but even our mind, our thoughts, and all are our actions essentially. And then final part of the second Adhyaya describes the attributes of the wise, the Sita Prajna. And from the 3rd to the 17th Adhyaya, Shri Krishna gives a detailed description of all these different paths, the goal, the sadhana, how we can do it, what is necessary, what needs to do. And then 18th Adhyaya finally again summarizes the entire message, what is given of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and finally what is the ultimate goal again describes. So in the second Adhyaya, Shri Krishna describes how we need to transcend the material realms, that is the final destination for us. We should not just be within this world and its attributes and its worldly afflictions, but the final goal is to transcend. He says, Trigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas describe the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tama, and all these actions that we do based on our three gunas that we have. Some of them are preponderant in some people, some are not. In some people, some are Sattva Pradhanya, some are Raja. They are all involved in action. Some are Tama Pradhanya, means they are more lazy, Pramad, Alas. So all this is dependent on the gunas that we have. And Shri Krishna says, Nistarai Gunyo Bhava Arjuna. Oh Arjuna, you rise above these three gunas. You get above this, you rise above them. And how we can rise above? He describes 4 steps. One is Nidvandva Bhava. Says, rise above these dualities. This world consists of all the dualities, the Sukha, the Dukkha, the Mana, Apmana, respect, disrespect. All these dualities, the love, hate, Raga, Dvesha, all these likes, dislikes are all the dualities of this world. And we should get above, rise above this Dvandva. And he says, Nitya Sattvasta Bhava. Rise from the Raja and the Tama Guna and attain the Sattva Guna. The Daivi Sampatti says the good moral values we should imbibe in our life. Niryoga Shema Bhava. Yoga and Shema. These are 2 words that Krishna says. Yoga means achievement, union, or achieving something. And we are always having this stress of achieving something. We want to achieve more and more, more and more. And this always keeps us under stress. And then once we achieve all these possessions, then we have to protect them so that they don't get washed off, they don't get lost, they don't get hit, they don't get stolen. And that's why this stress of protecting our achievements, our possessions are something that yoga and kshema. And Shri Krishna tells us that niryoga kshema, you put all these desires or all this stress into my feet, I'll take care of them. Yoga kshema bhahamyaham. In the 14th Adhyaya, Bhagavan says this. And then Atmavan Bhava. Says Atmavan Bhava means make sure that you are the master of your own self, because you have to achieve this, you have to be proactive, you have to do a lot of efforts, he tells Arjuna, and be courageous, don't get upset, be very patient and persistent in your efforts to reach your goals. Atmavan Bhava means we have to have Atma Krupa, we have to chart our own path and walk along that path to reach to our goals. And in the second Adhyaya, Shri Krishna explains what is the journey this from Karma Yoga, how we can attain the purity of the mind, Antakaran Shuddhi, and finally then we can attain this Atma Jnana, the divine knowledge. Says Karma Jam Buddhi Yukta, by the attitudes of Karma Yoga, where the main attitude is that we let go of the attachment to the fruits of the action. Karmanya Bhadikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana. Means the phala, that ichha, that phala, attachment to the fruits or the phala, we have to let go. Manishina, one who has conquered this, then he is liberated from this birth and death. and attains moksha, the highest self, and free from all the afflictions which is there. So the journey for the seeker, Shri Krishna describes in the final two shlokas of the second adhyaya, that what is this goal for the seeker? In the worldly sense, it is vihaya kamanya sarvan. Means all these binding desires, we have to let go of them because they keep us bound and they don't allow us to remain happy. And that's why these kind of binding desires we have to let go. Puman charati nispruha. All these people who live without longing, without attachments, nirmama, without attachments of my own self, this is my house, this is my, everything is my. This kind of attachment we have to let go. Nirahankara. We have to let go of our pride. Our pride, the limited I, binds to this limited self and does not allow us to attain the eternal beauty or eternal happiness. And that's why we have to let go of this. Shantim madhigacchati, he says, and those are the only people who attained eternal peace. Those who let go of these binding desires, this longing, these attachments, and this pride or ego for their own self. And finally, he shows the final goal in the last shloka of the second adhyaya. He says, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. This freedom, this liberation, moksha, this Brahmi Sthiti is something that is the ultimate goal, that I am the Brahman. What is Brahman will just come to it. Enam prapyana vimurte. Once you achieve this, there is no going back to attachment, moha, ajnana. Once this jnana is there, there is no going back. And even if one achieves this at the fag end of the life, one attains Brahma Nirvana, the moksha, freedom. So this can only be attained during our human life, and that should be the final endeavor. And what is this Brahma? Shri Krishna describes in Akshara Brahma Yoga, the 8th Adhyaya. He says, Avyakta, that unmanifest, eternal, Akshara, that one which is indestructible, that Tattva, that is Brahma Tattva, which is everywhere, which is omnipresent. And we should, that same Tattva, he says, Paramam Gatim, that is the same, my final destination, that he is not different from this. Yam Prapyana Nivartante, by reaching which one cannot go back. And Tad Dhama Paramam Dhama, that is my eternal abode. So this freedom, mukti, moksha, nirvana, whatever we call that, what is our Vedanta calls it, it is nothing but ignorance has to be destroyed. Our ajnana is something that hides this jnana that is there, and that's why once this ajnana or avidya is destroyed, that eternal freedom is already there, moksha is there. It is, we are nitya mukta, that is what Vedanta tells us, and that is our real swarupa, that is our real self, and that is what we have to know. And that's why it is possible only with the knowledge, self-knowledge, Brahmagnan or Atmagnan. It cannot be achieved by persistence, efforts or karma. It has to be achieved only by knowledge. And during the life, when we achieve this knowledge, it is Jivan Mukti or Sadeya Mukti, freedom during the lifetime. And the same person, when his body comes to an end after death, it is called Videya Mukti. There is no more birth after the death. And that's why what we need to do in the 4th Adhyaya, Shri Krishna says, that's why you make sure that this ignorance from your mind is destroyed, and this is possible only by the firm and the sharp sword of knowledge, Gnana Asina. Only with knowledge, we have to kill all our inner doubts and understand this divinity that Shri Krishna explains in Bhagavad Geeta. We have to practice this yoga, the Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, this yoga that he says, Atishta Uttishta Bharataho. Arjuna, stand up, get ready, and attain this ultimate divinity, the real truth that I am showing you. And this is what even our Upanishads tell us. Famous words of Swami Vivekananda, Uttishta Jagrata, Prapta Bharani Bodhata. That is what is part of our Upanishad. Arise, awake, and don't stop till your goal is reached. And final goal is the Jnana, but this can only be achieved by going on the path of Karma, Karma Yoga, finally Shuddhi, and then only Jnana can be achieved. So the other goal that our scriptures or Bhagavad Gita teaches us is to develop an equanimity of vision, Samatva Darshan. Don't see all these differences, but within the differences, try to see the sameness amongst all the differences. It says there are all these successful people in the world whose mind is firmly rooted in that one Tattva Brahma, as this Brahma is innocent, nirdosha, does not have any blemish, and it is samam, it is the same everywhere. There is no differences within this Tattva or Brahma. And that's why one who is firmly established in this equanimity is deeply rooted in in Brahma. And this is the true vision, to see one in the many, sarvatra samadarshanaha. And this is the true victory over oneself. There is nothing like failure, because within all the worldly situations, we are trying to remain samatva, sameness, and we don't label them as this is victory, this is defeat, or this is failure. And from all the failures, we learn the lessons and then move on in our life. And that's how we can achieve this ultimate happiness or the eternal bliss. For the seeker, this is part of the journey and also the goal. Giving undue importance to worldly things, we remain entangled in this world, but we have to rise above this. Rather than giving too much importance to these worldly dualities, we can dissolve all these differences by the right understanding that scriptures provide us, and by remaining equipoised, samatva, in any situation of life. That is the message of Gita Ji, and this is what is one of the goals of our life. In the 14th Adhyaya, which is also the Adhyaya of three gunas, then in this also, after describing all the three gunas, Shri Krishna describes how we can transcend these three gunas. He says, the wise person who sees that I am different from this karta, from this doership. So this doership is in the anatma, whereas I am different from this. And one who knows that I am above these three gunas, three gunatita, then that person attains at my highest self, and that is only possible by this. And finally, in the 15th Adhyaya, which is the Purushottam Yoga, he also describes what is the final goal of the mankind, the Tat Pada Prapti, the divinity. The Tat Pada is the divine, divinity, the supreme divinity, the highest Tattva, Paramatma Tattva as we call it, which is the most subtle, the most sukshma, unmanifest. And one should try to attain this, and that is the goal of our life. Yasmin Gatvana Nivartanti Bhuyaha, after attaining which we don't need to come back in this world. And to that Adi Purusha, I surrender. Purusham Prapadye. Surrender and devotion is the way to achieve this, to understand this divinity. And from where the entire universe begins, that Paramatma Tattva, from where all this nature, the Maya, starts its own pravrutti, its action, that is that Tattva, that Paramatma Tattva that we need to reach. And in the 18th Adhyaya, when Shri Krishna summarizes everything, again he says what all we need to do, and start from Karma Yoga, surrendering all our actions to me, what is called Ishwararpana Bhavana, and Chetasa, with understanding, with awareness, living our life every moment. Matparaha, being devoted to the Lord, with Almighty, with the surrender Bhavana. Buddhi Yoga Mupashritya, using our intellect, being equipoised in all situations by the understanding that scriptures provide us with Samatva. And Matta Chitta Satatam Bhava, keeping your mind always in me. Bhagavan says, keep your mind always in me. That is the goal. Always be connected to the divinity, to the universe. And this is how we can, chanting the Lord's name, surrender, and Smarana is Samarpan, giving a gratitude to the Almighty for everything that He has done. And finally, coming to the end of the message of Sri Krishna, in the final two shlokas of his message, he summarizes all this message that he has given in the 18th Adhyaya, 65 and 66 shlokas. He summarizes the Pravrutti Marga. In the 65th shloka, he says, Man Mana Bhava, keep your mind always in me, and doing Smarana. Mad Bhakta Bhava, being devoted to the Lord all the time. Bhakti. Madhyaji, surrendering to the Lord all our actions. Mam Namaskuru, taking the shelter, remaining surrendered to the Lord. Sharanagati. Mam Eva Aishyasi, you shall attain me only. And this is my honest pledge, O Arjun. I'm telling you because you are so dear to me. And of course, through Arjuna, Bhagavan is giving message to the entire humanity, because all the human beings are dear to the Lord, because it's a special species where we can attain this divinity, this Almighty, or this supreme power. So only if I'm not attached to this world, I can remain attached to the Lord, and that should be our endeavor, to go from the outside world to the inner divinity within us. The final message of Lord Krishna, Nivrutti Marga, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Renounce all your dharma, karma, and surrender to the knowledge, and understand that the self is the non-doer, it is Atman. This is the understanding. Mamekam Sharanam Raja, come only to my shelter by leaving everything else. Aham Tava Sarva Papepya, I shall relieve you all the sins. Moksha Ishyami, I shall give you freedom, moksha. Do not worry, Arjuna. and that is the words of solace of none other than Shri Krishna. So scriptures show us the final goal of our life. We knowingly or unknowingly, all of us yearn towards, we all our actions and all our life, what we actually want is something that we want to live always. That's why we take care of our body, our mind, and all these things. We don't know, nobody wants to age, and we all want to live always. No one wants to die. And that always reminds us of our Sat Tattva, the existence within us. We all want to learn, we all want to know all the time, and we all want to remove our ignorance of us. That's why we read the news and we, interact with people, trying to find out the news. We try to know, we try to learn, we try to, do so many. That is reminds us of the Chit Tattva, that is our Jnana Swarupa. And we all always want to be happy. Nobody wants to be in pain, miseries. We all want happiness at all cost. And that shows our Ananda Swarupa. It is our own self that is happy. It is our own self that is Ananda Swarupa. And every one of us yearns for the Sat, Chit and the Ananda. And that is our own real self. That is what Vedanta shows us, teaches us, our scriptures, that there is no happiness outside. It is all part of me. It is my own Swarupa, my own self, which is eternally happy. And I don't need to rush outside. So with this, we come to the end of this session. I pay my gratitude towards the Lord, with whose grace everything is possible. I pray to this Guru Shishya Parampara, through which this knowledge, the scriptures are preserved, transmitted so as to reach us. I pay my respects to my Guruji, Pujya Guruma, with whose grace I am able to learn the scriptures and share this understanding with you. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.